I can't do this, says your sleep debt. You can, says Adderall. If there's one audience I'd really like to tap into, it's people taking Adderall. I just feel like they're the only ones who will really appreciate my content. Hello everybody, I'm Sam. If you're a subscriber, then this video may not be relevant to you. Why are you watching it? I just wanted to get some organic search traffic coming through this channel, and so I've decided to talk today about my experience with Adderall, which I've been taking since 2012. It's now 2017 and my heart is 90 years older than it was. I know that when I first started taking Adderall, I read and watched anything I could where people would talk about their experiences with it. In hindsight, probably because I was on Adderall for the first time, and so of course I watched everything I could find. So I'm gonna jump on that bandwagon today and hope that I make some money from it. Okay, this isn't cute, how shameless I'm being here. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about my experience, like kind of getting diagnosed with ADHD and beginning to take Adderall. I'm gonna talk about the honeymoon phase. I'm gonna talk about the more long-term impact of taking Adderall. And I also want to give you guys a little bit of advice if maybe your doctor has recommended that you start taking it, or maybe you're taking it recreationally because you're insane. So as I said, I started taking Adderall back in 2012 at the recommendation of my therapist and then my doctor. I definitely don't have like hyperactivity disorder. I have more of ADD. I don't know like what all the terms are these days because I know that they've now changed everything to be called ADHD. Anyway, I'm not hyperactive. I wish I was. I take Adderall to be hyperactive. Cute! But I definitely have always struggled to focus, and it wasn't necessarily a school kind of thing. I wasn't like the textbook, I can't focus in school, please give me Adderall so I can write this essay. I actually always excelled in school, but it's just a whole thing. I don't want to get into that. This is specifically about Adderall, not the crevices of my terrible mind. So I started taking Adderall, and it's definitely a huge change because you suddenly can focus on things very, very well. I mean, even if you don't have ADD, Adderall still helps people with that. That's why people take it recreationally in college and stuff, which I'm gonna talk more about in a bit, but I just think is so dumb. So the noticeable effects when I first started taking it were a lot of euphoria, you know, felt really good, liked that, and just like being really nice to people. If anyone has taken Adderall before, you might remember, or you may still experience that euphoria that leads to you doing embarrassing things, like texting an old friend like a freaking essay about why you love them because you're feeling good and you've got the attention span to do it. So like, why not write 900,000 words on why you love your friend you haven't seen in 6 years because you had a falling out with them? That isn't a real example. That's just what came out of my head. I've taken Adderall before this video in case you can't tell. Ooh, I hate how this is going. Other really strong effects that you get at first is not having an appetite. Now, there are some pros and cons in this. I personally lost like 10 pounds when I started taking Adderall. I was slim and I just got slimmer, but you know, like overall was like healthy at both points. You know, I just went from a BMI of like 22 to a BMI of like 18 and a half, 19, I don't know, but definitely like stayed within a healthy weight range. But I definitely don't think it's healthy the way that it makes you lose weight because you essentially just don't eat. So if you are gonna start taking Adderall, I would definitely recommend that you are really cautious and mindful about how you eat, and make sure that when you do eat, and I would encourage you to try and force yourself to eat, but if you can't and you have to wait till like right at the end of the day, at first at least, while you're getting used to the medication, you just have no appetite, make sure that the things that you are eating when you do eat are very nutrient dense, because otherwise you're going to be losing weight, your body's probably going to lose muscle, it's very likely that your skin will break out. I got acne for the first time in my life when I started taking Adderall. I grew up in England in just in my opinion, like a great environment for skin because it was humid and there's a lot of fresh air. I never struggled with my skin, but when I started taking Adderall, it was the worst my skin had ever been, and it sucked. And I don't have a complete theory about why that happened, but my best guess is that I just wasn't eating, well, enough, so my insulin levels were just like crazy for that whole time. But also I was just not eating healthy food. Like when I would eat, you know, I could eat a handful of Doritos and be fine. So be careful of that. Weight loss wise, yeah, I mean, you might lose weight. And if that's something you do not want to experience, then get yourself like some like meal replacement shakes or whatever it is that you can consume without feeling like, oh, because I know that feeling where you just do not want to eat because you're on Adderall and you just have zero appetite. The other thing I would say about the honeymoon period is it takes a little bit of getting used to all the effects, and so I would also definitely be aware of what Adderall is making you focus on. You know, we've all heard like the joke about people on Adderall cleaning their floors with a toothbrush. That is so close to where I was at for months. It would be 1 AM, I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I would just be cleaning the hell out of my bathroom, which is actually kind of nice. But just be aware that just because you take Adderall doesn't mean you're going to immediately focus on your homework. It might take your attention to something else that you aren't interested in focusing on. So this is again why I wouldn't really advise using it. Well, I wouldn't advise using it recreationally, because there's just like no guarantees. Anyway, now insomnia is the worst part of starting to take Adderall. The honeymoon phase of Adderall, I look back on with a certain fondness, to be honest, minus the raging insomnia. It would be 4 AM, I would be on Pinterest, I would have a class at 8 AM, and even though the Adderall would help me get through the next day on no sleep, it was just a nightmare. Again, this is probably another reason why my skin was terrible, because I wasn't sleeping well, I was, you know, pumping a stimulant through my body all the time, I wasn't eating enough, and just stuff like that. I don't know what you can do about the insomnia, but what I would recommend is absolutely stick to the guidelines they give you. I think when I first started taking it, it said on my bottle, do not take after 1 PM, or maybe it was 12. And sometimes I would ignore that. Don't ignore it. It is not worth being up all night. It's painful to have insomnia so terribly. It's not just like the odd night's sleep where like you can't get to sleep, so you're just like watch TV. It's like agonizing because you want to sleep, but it just sucks. Insomnia is the worst, and I just think you should avoid it wherever possible. So definitely don't take Adderall too late in the day, especially in the beginning. Like now that I've been taking it for years, I can take it around 2 or 3 and be okay, but just be aware of that. I would also, and I know this is something that you would have to work out with your doctor, I would encourage you to take the smallest dose you possibly can, because in the beginning, any amount, like even if you're taking 5 milligrams, is going to be, especially if you actually have ADD, which hopefully if you're thinking about taking Adderall, it's because you actually have ADD and you need some help, you feel like you need some help. Even if you're taking 5 milligrams in the beginning, that's going to give you the help you need. Don't fall into the trap that I fell into, which was basically the honeymoon sort of phase. The symptoms were so like good and enjoyable and productive and helpful for me, and also like everyone loves feeling euphorically happy, you know, I'm gonna be honest here, that I feel like I sort of encouraged my doctor to prescribe me more, so I ended up getting a prescription of 40 milligrams a day, which I still have to this day, but I don't actually take 40 milligrams a day now. But in the beginning I was all about it, you know, I'd take 40 milligrams every day, and it's just not good. You don't need it. I think, again, I know that this is probably going to sound controversial because I'm not a doctor, but I think if you're going to be on Adderall at all, which as I keep saying, I'm going to get on to kind of like my thoughts about that later, but if you're going to be on it at all, get on the smallest amount possible, because even though it feels so good at first and it's so helpful, you will suffer later down the line if you get used to taking, say, 40 milligrams a day. And it goes without saying, never take more than you're prescribed. It's not worth it. Just trust me, as someone who did it, not worth it. So for me, the honeymoon phase was kind of long, because I hear that if you actually have ADD, you don't need to like increase your Adderall dosage. You know, it's not like an antidepressant where like over the years you have to take more and more to get the same effects. For me, I'm currently sitting at about, well, I take about 10 to 20 milligrams a day, sometimes none, on a good day. And that works great for me, even though I've been taking it for 5 years now? No, probably like 4-ish years now. So you don't need to be upping your dosage constantly. But once the honeymoon phase has worn off, for me it was like I'd say it was about a year, to be honest. Well, over that year, like, obviously I wasn't like euphoric every day for a year, do you know what I mean? But definitely it was intense for about a year. Since that honeymoon phase, as I keep calling it, has worn off, I think I've developed a much healthier relationship with Adderall, because now it's not, I mean, even though I was prescribed it, it kind of felt recreational in a way because it was so enjoyable. But now I don't want to take a bunch of Adderall and like be up all night, or I don't know, it's just different. My relationship with it has changed. So how has my relationship with Adderall changed? Well, let's talk a little bit about the appetite weight loss thing. I feel like that's something I was really interested in, and you guys might be too. It definitely still suppresses my appetite now, but not to the extent where I'm like skipping meals, you know? Like, actually in general, I tend to not eat lunch. Like, I'll usually have breakfast, it'll be around a brunch time. And then because I work from home, I'll maybe have a snack. Sometimes I'll have lunch, but a lot of the time I don't have lunch, but then I'll have like a huge dinner and a lot of snacks. So it definitely doesn't suppress my appetite in the way it used to. I've actually gained back most of the weight that I lost from Adderall. So this is another thing you need to be aware of, is that you probably will lose weight at first. And I think it is possible to keep the weight off, but for me, as I've reduced my Adderall intake and just become more aware of like the foods I want to be putting more food in my body. I think when I started taking it, I wasn't as interested in health and stuff, but now I'm very concerned with making sure I'm getting like the right nutrients, blah, 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 blah. So part of it is a conscious effort, and part of it is because like I have no self-control about chips, and at night when my Adderall's worn off, anything goes. One little negative I just remembered about losing weight on Adderall is that because you are starving yourself, essentially, well, that's how most people will lose weight, just because they like forget to eat or don't eat, is your breath will smell bad. And so, you know, I would always chew gum, or I have good oral hygiene, but it's just something you can't really avoid. Like most of the time when people have really bad breath, it's because they haven't eaten. So be aware of that, because that sucks. And Adderall also, in the beginning, doesn't really do this to me now, will dry out your mouth a lot. So like those two factors combined, it's just like a shitstorm for like having bad breath, which obviously you don't want. So sort that out. So as I said, I have gained back some of the weight that I lost while on Adderall, but I'm fine with it because I'm still slim and healthy. I also think another reason I've gained it back is because when I was first taking Adderall, I was in college and just walking constantly up and down giant hills, and I was doing like P90X, and I was just doing a lot, you know. So of course I was going to be hyper skinny. In terms of focus, I still feel most of the same benefits from Adderall. I definitely feel that because I've been taking it for so many years, I am dependent on it. I don't think Adderall is, you know, you can get off it at any time. It isn't like an antidepressant where if you just go cold turkey on your antidepressants, I've never taken antidepressants, but this is just what I hear, you're gonna like have like physical symptoms that are unpleasant and your body's going to react negatively. I don't think that's the case with Adderall, but I do think when you're used to having a stimulant help you to get stuff done for years, it can be very difficult to just motivate yourself, especially if you have ADD, because you already struggle with it to begin with. But I think that Adderall long term makes you more ADD, and this is the thing I wanted to get onto, and the thing I wanted to warn you about and kind of give my advice on. My main piece of advice is that you should not get on Adderall unless you are certain that is the only thing that can help you. And I highly doubt that most of us, most of you guys wanting to be skinny bitches, have put in the work necessary to figure out if you can help yourself first. What I wish I could do, if I went back in time before I got on Adderall, I would maybe still get on it, but less. But what I wish I'd done is practiced, like for example, meditation is very helpful for training your brain and helping you to focus better. ADD or no ADD, raging ADD or no ADD, that is just the case, like look up the studies. So I wish that I had just put more effort into kind of my own mental training, because this was also a time in my life where like a smartphone was starting to come in, and you know, there were all these factors that I think were influencing my ADD to become worse. I did not like how my mouth just sounded when I said to. So that's my advice. I think, as I said, because I now feel somewhat dependent on Adderall, and Adderall is like an annoying drug to be taking because it's not easy to like stock up on it. You have to like be aware of it and be getting it every single month and go to your doctor every 3 months, depending on your doctor. And it's just a hassle. And it also sucks when you feel like you can't get anything done without Adderall, when before, though you may have always had ADD, you still could get stuff done that now you feel kind of incapable of getting done without Adderall. So if you have to get on it, just get on the smallest amount possible. Just say, and I don't know that doctors are as smart as they should be about this. I really feel like Adderall is way too overprescribed in the US. There's no way I would have got prescribed it in England. But I think just tell him that you want to take the smallest amount possible. It's kind of shocking to me looking back how much I was able to influence my doctor to prescribe me more, because it's really, with ADD treatment, you're just going on what your patient's saying. There's not a lot of science behind it, which sucks because I think people get like overprescribed drugs. So be very aware, take it very cautiously. As thrilling as it may feel to have a drug that makes you feel like you're in limitless now, you will regret it later down the line, is my opinion. So try and moderate your consumption. So that is a general overview of my experience with Adderall. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments. I will answer every single one. I feel like I know everything there is to know about Adderall. Well, you know, again, not a doctor, not a chemist, but I'm all about that legal speed life. I'm not. don't do it. And I just want to help out anyone else who is kind of faced with the decision of whether or not to take Adderall for the first time. Don't take it recreationally. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just do cocaine. No, I'm joking. Don't do cocaine either. That's mental. Just like microdose mushrooms or something. I hear that's what they do in Silicon Valley, so that's probably way more useful. I hope that you're all having a great day. I hope that you guys aren't too jazzed up on Adderall right now, and stay safe, kids. This one time I didn't take Adderall and it was the worst 19 years of my life.